I want to thank everybody for joining us for the Holiday Cultural Conversations. It's the first time we've ever done this event, obviously. As many of you know, this virtual event was planned following the decision that we would not safely be able to have the Holiday Cultural Festival. While this was a difficult decision, of course, it was made with feedback from the participating groups that experienced this event along with us. It's very, very important to us that we begin by acknowledging that this huge event that we do is only made possible because of the cultural groups and community groups that are able to participate. So we know it can never be replaced by this online format, but we certainly hope it's enjoyable and it's a little something to continue to kick off your holiday season. We definitely look forward to being able to resume the on-site events in future years when it's safe to do so. But in the meantime, we're super grateful for the footage of past performances that we have to share with you, and also for our partners at the Tri-Faith Initiative, who I will introduce shortly, who are here to lend their expertise today. Before we begin, I do want to thank our Christmas at Union Station sponsors, and then we will get to the main event. In this unprecedented year, I'm sure you all know this, it was not a guarantee at any point that we would be able to host a Christmas tree and do any form of our signature event. And so to be able to pull this off and create some new traditions and keep some old ones is very exciting for sure. Christmas at Union Station is presented by FNBO, with Conagra Brands Foundation serving as a major sponsor, alongside supporting sponsors Union Pacific, Omaha Public Power District, and Mangelsons. And then an additional special thanks to all of the amazing folks that help us actually with the tree harvest. That includes Norm's Door Service, Terry Hughes Tree Service, the Omaha Police Department, and Duke Aerial. And then, of course, our media support is provided by KETV for the Christmas season. So a huge thank you to all of those. So we are going to kick things off by talking a little bit about this gorgeous tree behind me. So I cannot see you, but I'm wondering how many people on the call. So just raise your hand, even if I can't see you, if you have gotten to see this year's tree. If you haven't, I hope you will be able to come see it in person if it's safe for you to do so. We really like to, and excuse me while I just continue to let folks in here. We really like to share the history of the tree, but also a little information about how we get it into the building. So I am going to share some pictures with you throughout today's presentation. These early pictures, these first pictures that I want to show you are from very, very early in the station's history. So if you didn't know, Union Pacific actually started the tradition of bringing in a real live Christmas tree right when the station opened in 1931. So the picture on the left there, I believe, is from one of the first seasons. If you're familiar with the museum, that is the Swanson Gallery. So that's that big empty room we have at the end of the Great Hall that we use for weddings and other events. When it was a station, that was, of course, the Hayden House, which was a restaurant. And so you can see in that beautiful black and white photo, the wreaths and some of the decor that they put up even that first year. And then, of course, on the right, you can see the actual, one of the actual trees, not nearly as big as maybe our trees are now, not to brag or anything, but a beautiful tree nonetheless. Now, we always have a ton of questions about how on earth we get that tree into the building and how we decorate it. But before I tell you about that, I wanted to show you how they used to decorate it. This is probably one of my favorite pictures from the photo archive. Just so you kind of know what you're looking at here, because it doesn't always register right away. This is a photo from 1955. Both of these are from that year. And your eyes are not deceiving you. That is a gentleman sitting in what looks to be your average wooden kitchen chair. I was not there, so I can't speak to where they got the chair and if it was a kitchen chair, but it's just a wooden chair that is rigged up to be decorating the tree. So this is in 55 when it was still a train station, of course. Now today, this is a photo of what we call the West End on the west side of our building facing 10th Street. So normally, if you were here with me right now looking at this, you would see 3 big sets of double doors. This is all one big opening in this photo. So this is where I thanked Norm's Door Service. They help our team not only take those doors off, but all of the framing so that that's one giant opening. And then believe it or not, no matter how wide the tree is, and this year's is very wide, a pickup truck is hooked up to the tree, and the tree is pulled into the building. Obviously, that part is due to safety. It's not a public event. We can barely kind of keep the staff away from looking because it's so fun to see. And this year, it actually took not 1 but 2 pickup trucks to pull the tree in because it was so wide, which was really fun. So I really like to show pictures of kind of, obviously the tree is gorgeous when it's all decorated, but one of my favorite things every year is to see the tree in kind of its raw form. So obviously this picture on the right here, it's not quite straightened yet. That is the first part of the process. And you can see just how tall it is in this photo as well. And then this is how we decorate it. So we do not use a wooden chair attached to ropes anymore. We stanchion it off, as you can see, and we use an official lift to do that. At the top of this picture, you can see the black wires above the star. A lot of people don't realize this, but our tree is actually completely suspended from the ceiling. I always jokingly say we don't have a giant tree stand to put the tree in, but you can kind of see at the top there, but it is completely hanging from that ceiling. It does, of course, rest in a trap of water, and we try to keep it watered. But those cables get hooked to it, and then it lifts into place. And just like your Christmas tree at home, we spin it around and try to find the perfect way for it to face. And this year's tree also has, we always like to share these numbers too, it's always fun to hear. The tree has about 300 of these giant ornaments on it that you see behind me, and it's about 1,200 feet of lights, so just over a football field. So with us today is Jeremy Fricke. He is the Education Director at the Tri-Faith Initiative. And Jeremy is going to do several segments for us today. This is some photos he's going to use for his first one here. So Jeremy, I will let you take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, so as you heard, I'm Jeremy Fricke, and I'm Education Director at Tri-Faith Initiative. Firstly, before I move on, I do want to say a little bit about Tri-Faith. It's an interfaith organization that's partnered with a synagogue, a church, and a mosque to establish a shared commons on 132nd and Pacific. Now, we're all separate organizations. It's really more of a partnership between different people, and we're open to everybody. Everyone is welcome to any programs or any of our educational opportunities. We're really focused on really making relationships better and understanding each other better, particularly across religious lines. But I'm here primarily to talk about some Jewish, Christian, and Muslim holidays that are celebrated throughout the year. And I'm going to start with Judaism in this first section. And first, I'd like to just show you really quick. Here is Temple Israel. I'm actually doing this video from the Tri-Faith Center. We're not open yet, but I'll be able to show you each of the buildings from here. So one thing I do want a lot of people to understand about Judaism is that we shouldn't forget holidays beyond Hanukkah. Traditions and importance of various holidays do differ depending on who you're talking to. But today I'm going to maybe introduce you or remind you of a holiday called Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, and it is a wonderful celebrated occasion. Many of the traditions are joyful, such as a large ram's horn is often blown so that to kind of welcome the new year in. And every year, although not this year, usually the other two congregations will kind of provide some hospitality for particularly important holidays. So these couple of pictures are from the last couple of years. Some of the church members and mosque members are providing apples and honey. Apples and honey are kind of symbolic of wishing someone to have a sweet new year. You dip the apples in honey. It's pretty good. So I also want to note with this that the Jewish religious calendar is not the same as the Gregorian calendar, which is what we use in the United States. So the dates of the holidays move every year a little bit, but they usually stay within a couple of months. So Rosh Hashanah, which is this Jewish New Year, is usually in September or October. If you could go to the next slide, please. And so, but at a winter holiday conversation, we should also be talking about Hanukkah. And right here we have a very fancy menorah, or Hanukkah. Sometimes it's called a Hanukkah, with the Star of David at the center. And that raised candle in the center is called the shamash. And it's used to light the other candles for the 8 days of Hanukkah. And really there are two main stories about Hanukkah. One is that the holiday is something of a celebration of religious freedom after Jewish people were able to use the temple in Jerusalem again and were able to celebrate certain holidays. The second is that when the temple was rededicated, there was a miracle that took place. And while they only had enough oil for one day to light the temple, the miracle was that the oil ended up lasting for 8 days. So one of the really popular practices on Hanukkah is to eat some fried foods to kind of remind ourselves of the kind of miracle of the oil, because you fry foods in oil. So yeah, that is a couple of the more important Jewish holidays.
Thank you, Jeremy. So we will go back to Jeremy. This is going to be a little bit of a variety show format, which we really like to do. Keeps you on your toes, so you're hearing from lots of different people. We will go back to Jeremy 2 more times because it is the Tri-Faith Initiative. So he will have 3 segments total. In the meantime, the next thing we're actually going to do, we have a couple of videos to share with you. We know that one of the most beloved parts of the Holiday Cultural Festival is getting to see different cultural groups perform, whether it's any type of dance or music that are important to their culture. And so this first video I'm going to share with you is just a montage, if you will, from, I believe, the 2018 festival on our main stage. And so I will mute myself and play that for you, and we hope you enjoy. All right, so it would not be Holiday Cultural Festival without some bagpipes, right? So I hope you enjoyed that. We will have a couple other things like that to share with you. But for the next part, I am coming to you from just outside of the Great Hall now. Sorry, letting a couple more people in here. We are at the start of what we call our Holiday Cultural Tree Display. So I love how our team wrote our little introduction for this exhibit. It so perfectly explains the purpose of this exhibit. It can be confusing, and we get questions about why do you represent these other cultures using Christmas trees? They don't all celebrate Christmas. And so I'll tell you a little bit about what the exhibit says about that I think is really neat. So people across the world celebrate Christmas and the end of the year in different ways by gathering with family and friends, as well as many other traditions. The Durham Museum recognizes that diverse and unique people call Nebraska home. Since our state's earliest days as a territory, each new immigrant family brought their food, skills, and dreams to create the Nebraska identity we know today. Each tree presented here is presented here in decorated in honor of the homeland that was left and not forgotten. And so I'm going to show you a couple of those trees today. I thought that was a really neat explanation of kind of the idea of presenting these trees. So I'm going to turn on my other camera and show you a couple of these trees. So the first one we're going to talk about here is our tree that actually is meant to represent the American Indian heritage. So throughout the United States, there are approximately 500 different American Indian nations, and each of course have their own unique customs. Their civilizations predate the arrival of Europeans, but because of colonization, many celebrate Christmas, perhaps with their own blend of traditions and Christianity. For many Native people, there might be an emphasis on gathering for food, as most holidays include. And different traditions involving meals, giving gifts, and attending ceremonies or services. With many Native nations, the European stories of Christmas are blended with traditional tales. One example is called the Huron Carol, and that's a tradition from the Northeast. We are going to wheel over to the Lithuanian tree. This is always a fan favorite, I think, just because of the creative spin that they put on their ornaments. So Nebraska actually welcomed some of its first Lithuanian immigrants as early as 1890. Ties to the country are certainly still felt today in connections to Omaha's Lithuanian sister city or in bakeries around town that use recipes passed down for generations. As with many of these cultures, food is a centerpiece during the big Christmas Eve tradition that involves celebrating with 12 dishes. The meal is made up of different fish, vegetables, and sweets. Each dish is tried in order to avoid bad luck. So you can try that on your kiddos at your holiday meal if they won't try something you want them to try. Tell them about the Lithuanian heritage. The reason why I think this one is really fun is because making ornaments out of rye straw is a popular, not only Lithuanian tradition, but some other countries in that area as well. This group that made the ornaments for this tree years ago, they used plastic straws as kind of a modern twist. So those ornaments are certainly very pretty to look at and kind of a unique spin on that tradition. All right, so we have lots more trees to talk about. But I will come back to that shortly because it is now time for Jeremy's next segment. And so I will pull our photos back up, Jeremy. Whoops, I will play the video. There we go. Take it away, Jeremy.
All right. So I'm not going to go into like very much of the origins of Christmas or anything like that. But, you know, as many of you know, Christmas has both religious and secular components. And it's usually understood to celebrate the birth of Jesus. But at Tri-Faith Initiative, you know, we have a tradition of providing some hospitality for some of the more important holidays for each congregation. And candy canes are the classic provided sweet to Countryside by Temple Israel and American Muslim Institute. You know, sadly, we have not been able to do the hospitality this year. But we generally provide, you know, some very personalized messages from each congregation and from people outside those congregations to Countryside and to the others over video, and we make a montage out of it. But Countryside Community Church also has a beautiful organ that creates a whole bunch of beautiful Christmas music. And often it has a candlelight service that goes along with it. I'm going to actually show you Countryside from here, hopefully. Hopefully you can see that, you know, very beautiful building, as they all are. And so really what I'd like to do is kind of go through a few interesting facts about Christmas in different ways. So fact number one is Christmas isn't on the 25th of December in the Orthodox Church. It's actually on January 7th. And it's really because, again, kind of like when we talked about the moving holidays in Judaism, they use a different calendar for religious holidays. So they use the calendar called the Julian calendar. So it ends up being on January 7th. And then the fact number two is that actually December 23rd is very important to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's actually the birthday of Joseph Smith. So they have sort of 3 days where they often will kind of observe as sort of an extended Christmas of sorts. There are a whole bunch of ways that Christmas is celebrated around the world, as you've heard a few from Abby about the various ethnic groups that have provided trees for the Durham. And it sounds like you're going to be talking about a few more. And I do encourage you to reach out to both the Durham and Tri-Faith for more information about those as well. If you could go to the next slide, please. And how many of you have heard about the 12 days of Christmas? All right. Do you know what those 12 days are in reference to? Because traditionally, it's the time between Christmas Day and a holiday called Epiphany in most Christian traditions. And in Mexico, it's called Dia de los Reyes, or Dia de Reyes. And that literally translates to Day of Kings, or King's Day. Epiphany is actually the day that is understood as the day that the kings, magi, or wise men visited the nativity and provided the gifts. So in a lot of cultures around the world, this is the maybe more important gift-giving holiday, especially for kids. This is a very popular tradition also in a lot of Mexico, not all of it, but a lot of it. And it's so important that it's often the last day of Christmas break. So, you know, we often have children go back to school the Monday after New Year's Day, I believe. And in Mexico, it's often on the day after Dia de Reyes. It's very important on this day to provide gifts for kids in particular, and especially underprivileged kids. Um, some of the older traditions, though, and although they are losing popularity in some ways, are people used to fill their shoes with hay and they leave their shoes outside their door. And the idea was that the wise men's animals would need something to eat in their travels while they're going around to provide gifts for kids. The Magi are often quite significant to Christian communities because they actually they show the importance of Jesus to those who were born outside of Jesus's homeland. So there's a connection beyond that immediate region. And, there are many other traditions about Christmas, and I am looking forward to hearing about a few more from Abby.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. So next up, we actually have our second video clip for you. This one, if you've attended the Holiday Cultural Festival before, you might remember that we actually have two stages because we have so many amazing groups that want to and are able to come perform normally. So this video clip will be another montage for you of some groups that performed that same year on our lecture hall stage. All right. So I love that we were able to show those, especially watching through those again. I noticed just how many youth were involved in so many of those different cultural or community groups, which of course is our as our education director, this makes me incredibly happy. I'm going to turn my camera back around here to show you just a couple more holiday trees. So we have, I believe there are 10 total this year. So obviously I'm not quite able to get to all of them. And behind our trees, I know you can't see super close, but we actually also, if you see some framed photos on the wall back there, we actually also have a new exhibit this year called Scenes of the Season. And our collections and curatorial team did an incredible job of digging through the photo archive and finding a really neat variety of holiday related photos. That in itself could probably be a whole online presentation. So if you are able to safely come down, we would sure love for you to see that. I am going to show you the tree representing Mexican heritage. This is also another fan favorite typically just because it's so beautiful and brightly colored. Immigrants from Mexico came to Omaha for many of the same reasons as a lot of European immigrants did. So encouraged by work in certain industries, originally it was the railroad or the stockyards. Families arrived to make a living or seek new opportunities and then made their home here. Two very common Christmas foods are turkey and chocolate, of course, and both of those have origins in the country of Mexico. Along with lots of familiar foods related to Christmas, there's other more cultural maybe traditions, including tamales, a salted cod dinner, and a spiced stew called pozole. Poinsettias, of course, are a very common Christmas decoration now and was also originate from Mexico. I am going to also show you our tree that represents Irish heritage. Again, always another, they're all popular, but always another popular one. This one, of course, is very decked out in shamrocks and lots of green. Irish immigrants were one of the first and honestly one of the largest initial immigrant groups to Omaha. There were several Irish neighborhoods. One of the early was called Gopher Town. And today, the celebration, of course, most associated with Irish is St. Patrick's Day. But the funny thing about that is it was actually St. Patrick who brought Christmas to Ireland in the 5th century. So that's kind of a neat connection. Both holly and ivy, of course, are traditional decorations this time of year all over the world, and those date back to kind of the Celtic period and still remain popular today. And of course, I'm sure this will be no surprise, but there are lots of food-related traditions. Again, I think we could do a whole program just on the food represented by some of these cultures. All right, I'm going to turn my camera back around here. Before I wrap up this section, I just want to once again note that, of course, not all cultures, religions, and countries celebrate Christmas. And if they do, everyone has a unique way, even within certain cultures, of celebrating differently. I'm sure my family celebrates Christmas differently than Jeremy's family if they celebrate Christmas. So because of that, we're so grateful that Tri-Faith could join us and talk about some other important holidays, whether it's this time of year or others. And so on that note, I will turn it back over to Jeremy for his final segment.
Thank you, thank you. Well, let's talk a little bit about Islam and holidays. So I'm going to actually tell you just a little bit about the lunar calendar. The lunar calendar, Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr, and Eid al-Adha in just a couple minutes. All right, so we're going to go a little quick through this, but I think it's very important. So like we talked about with the Jewish calendar, the Islamic calendar is also a little bit different as it pertains to when the holidays end up being. So since it's a lunar calendar, every year, according to the one that the calendar that most people use, the holidays actually move about 10 days earlier every year. So that means that any holiday could be in any season over the course of many years. So, as such, Muslims don't have winter holidays per se, but theoretically, any holiday could land in winter. So many non-Muslims have heard of Ramadan. It's a religious month where Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset, and that means no food or water, sometimes avoiding other things as well from that sunrise to sunset. Now, that also means if Ramadan happens to land in summer, then it's a very long day. You could be fasting for 14, 16 hours. In winter, it could be as short as about 8 hours. Right? It's really popular also to read through the entirety of the Quran, which is the Muslim holy scripture, over the course of Ramadan. And it's also very common to break the fast each evening with a date fruit. It's kind of a long-standing tradition of a Middle Eastern fruit. At the end of Ramadan, we actually have a holiday called Eid al-Fitr, which means Festival of Breaking the Fast. After an entire month of fasting, this day is actually a day where Muslims are required to not fast. These here are a couple of photos from Eid al-Fitr in 2019 and 2018. And Temple Israel and Countryside Community Church members used to provide a lot of dates, but we started to realize that a lot of people were getting tired of dates after like 28 days of dates in the evening. So we have decided to switch to cookies because those are much more appreciated. Now, I also want to show American Muslim Institute here. And just to point out a little bit more, the kind of structure that's in front, the tall structure that's called a minaret. In some mosque, that would be where the call to prayer would be coming from. But at this mosque, there isn't one. There isn't a call to prayer that's outside. You might find that in the North Omaha Mosque or in other parts of the country. So the next Ramadan will be in mid-April to mid-May. And I also want to mention some of the things that are done during Eid al-Fitr. So the most common thing is actually let's have a big party, especially for kids. There's a ton of stuff that is usually done for kids during Eid al-Fitr. I know at American Muslim Institute or AMI, we get like a bouncy house, and sometimes there's like face painting or something like that where kids have fun all day, basically. If you could go to the next slide, please. And so this is a different angle of the American Muslim Institute. And the last holiday I want to talk about a little bit is called Eid al-Adha. This holiday celebrates the willingness of Abraham, or Ibrahim in Arabic, to sacrifice his son. So this is one of the holiest holidays. It's talked about a little less, but it's one of the holiest. It's not quite as focused on, excitement and fun. It's more about that important religious time. There's a lot of emphasis on giving to the poor, giving to the hungry. There's a long history of buying a bunch of meat and sharing the meat among the community. The next Eid al-Adha will be in July. And also, if you want to wish your Muslim friends or coworkers well during either of these holidays, Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha, wish them what we would say is Eid Mubarak, which simply means have a blessed holiday, basically. Now, there are many beautiful and important holidays and practices in December. But it's important to remember that there are a wide variety of holidays celebrated throughout the year, and those traditions are part of what make Omaha and the community so exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I learned a lot from you today, Jeremy, and this is not like this is the first time we've ever talked. So thank you so much for that. We will start to wrap up here, but I cannot end the event without some final words from Jeremy and I. But first, we got an amazing surprise this morning that a group that typically performs at the Holiday Cultural Festival, they're called Flamenco Omaha. I'm sure that's a fan favorite. They were able to get us a video today that they just filmed. So this is not a past performance. They did this, I think, really just for us. I probably won't show the whole thing just because it is about 5 minutes long, and I want to allow time for questions and closing comments too. But I believe we will also be posting this on our social media. In a year where we couldn't have the actual event, it is just so cool that they were able to do this. And I can't wait for you to see the backdrop they created. It's really sweet. As you can see, there's a little bit more to that video, but I want to allow a couple minutes for some closing thoughts and questions here. Jeremy, could you just start by kind of, first of all, again, a huge thank you. As we wrap up, can you just tell us a little bit about maybe anything Tri-Faith has coming up or some resources that folks can check out?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I would invite everyone to come to our website. We have all of our events, a ton of information that is always available. The vast majority of our events are also free to attend. So definitely look through there and see if there's anything that's particularly interesting. We also do a pretty good job of keeping our Facebook page updated with events. A couple upcoming programs so every month we do have a topically changing program where we talk about something with religious diversity, and I usually lead that. I teach a class. It's called Abraham's Whiteboard. A little bit silly, but it's kind of a grab bag of topics. We also have a program that we call Open Hearts, Open Minds, Open Conversation, and that's done in the earlier part of the day on some Thursdays. And both of those are on the website. Both are completely open to everybody who is interested in it. Right now we're doing basically everything by Zoom, but when the buildings are open, please come visit, and it is open for everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Super appreciate your expertise today and your time. Couple of things coming up at the Durham. We have this amazing tree here. So certainly hope you can come take your family picture if that's part of your tradition. We do have time tickets with fairly limited admission, so please do also check out our website for that information. And then, of course, there's the holiday cultural trees. And we also have a new holiday exhibit this year called Seasons Greetings. We have groups from the Playhouse and the Gardens who made incredible displays for us to put down by the train cars. And then we have a brand new, very safe Santa experience. So if you have little ones or grandkids in town and can safely come visit, we have a pretty neat setup for that. So check out our website. I did not see any questions come through, and I think we are technically a couple minutes over. So if there are none, I will wrap up. Thank you all so much for joining us. We certainly hope we will be able to continue this tradition and go back to our on-site event traditions perhaps next year. So thank you again. Have a wonderful night and weekend, everyone.